October 1347. A dozen ships from the Black Sea pull into the Sicilian port of Messina. The townspeople who gathered at the docks were met with a horrifying sight. Most of the sailors aboard were dead, and those still alive were gravely ill, covered in black boils that oozed blood and pus. The Sicilian authorities hastily ordered the fleet of death ships out of the harbor, but it was too late. The Black Death had arrived in Europe. This wasn't just any disease. It was a terrifying, swift, and seemingly unstoppable killer. The plague, caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis, spread with breathtaking speed. It moved along trade routes, carried by fleas on black rats that were common on merchant ships. Within months, it had reached the port of Marseilles in France and Tunis in North Africa. By 1348, it had engulfed Paris, Bordeaux, Lyon, and London. 1 year later, it had swept through Spain, Norway, and Germany. It seemed nowhere was safe. The symptoms were the stuff of nightmares. First came the fever, chills, and fatigue, followed by the appearance of painful, swollen lymph nodes called buboes, usually in the groin, armpits, or neck. These buboes could grow to the size of an apple and would turn black as the tissue died, giving the plague its infamous name, the Black Death. For many, death came within a week. Contemporary accounts describe the sheer terror and chaos. The Italian poet Boccaccio wrote of the plague in Florence. The victims ate lunch with their friends and dinner with their ancestors in paradise. People were desperate for an explanation. What had caused this apocalypse? Some believed it was a punishment from God. Groups of flagellants emerged, whipping themselves in public displays of penance, hoping to atone for humanity's sins. Others blamed minorities, leading to horrific persecutions. Many doctors were helpless, relying on ineffective and often dangerous treatments like bloodletting and boil lancing. They wore bizarre, bird-like masks with long beaks filled with aromatic herbs, believing it would protect them from a miasma or bad air. They thought was spreading the disease, but nothing worked. The scale of the devastation is hard to comprehend today. It's estimated that the Black Death wiped out between 30 to 60% of Europe's population in just 5 years, from 1347 to 1352. Somewhere between 75 and 200 million people perished. Entire villages were abandoned. Cities that were once bustling centers of trade and culture became mass graveyards. The social fabric of society completely unraveled. Parents abandoned their sick children, husbands left their wives, and the sick were often left to die alone. There were so many dead that mass graves had to be dug, with bodies piled up like lasagna. As one chronicler grimly noted, the world had become a charnel house. But as the first wave of the plague subsided, something unexpected began to happen. The world that emerged from the shadow of the Black Death was profoundly different. The sheer loss of life had created a massive labor shortage, suddenly. The peasants and laborers who had survived found themselves in a position of unprecedented power. For centuries, the feudal system had kept them tied to the land, working for a lord in exchange for protection and a small plot to farm. They had little freedom and even less pay. Now, with so few workers available, landowners were forced to compete for their labor. They had to offer higher wages, better working conditions, and more freedom to attract and keep tenants. For the first time, serfs could negotiate their terms. Many simply abandoned their feudal obligations and moved to cities or other manors that offered better deals. This newfound economic freedom and social mobility was revolutionary. The rigid, hierarchical structure of feudalism, which had dominated Europe for 1,000 years, began to crumble. The consequences rippled through every aspect of society. With higher wages, the surviving population had more disposable income. This spurred demand for goods beyond simple necessities, leading to a diversification of the economy. Land use also shifted, with fewer people to feed. Landowners converted arable land into pasture for sheep farming, which was less labor-intensive and more profitable thanks to the booming wool trade. Innovation also flourished. The labor shortage encouraged the development of new, labor-saving technologies. Think of the printing press, which would emerge in the following century. It was a direct response to the high cost of scribes, making knowledge more accessible than ever before. In a way, the Black Death cleared the ground for the Renaissance, the old certainties and institutions, including the unquestioned authority of the Church, had been shaken to their core. People began to question the old ways of thinking, leading to a surge in art science and philosophy that celebrated human potential. It's a dark and paradoxical thought, but this immense tragedy acted as a catalyst for profound and, in many ways, positive change. The Black Death didn't just kill millions. It killed an old world order. It tore down a rigid social system and created the conditions for a more dynamic and modern society to emerge. It was a brutal, horrifying, and indiscriminate event, but it also acted as a reset button for history by creating a world with fewer people. It paradoxically opened up a world with more opportunities for those who were left, the survivors. Well, the plague didn't just rebuild their world. They built a new one on the ashes of the old. Thanks for watching. If you found this journey into the past interesting, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration of history as most pivotal moments. See you next time.